For the longest time, when we looked at a forest, we saw one thing: timber. But now, global corporations are looking at that same forest and seeing something totally different. They're seeing data, a massive library of genetic code that could be worth billions. Folks, this is the new gold rush, and it's happening right now in the jungles of Mesoamerica. So today, we're going to dive into how we started putting a price tag on life itself. And this quote right here, it really just nails it. This isn't about axes and chainsaws anymore. This is a symbolic conquest. It's about using science to translate the living world into the language of finance. It's about turning a gene sequence into a patent and a plant into a potential financial asset. All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with this new gold rush itself, and then we'll pull the lens back to see the huge global forces at play. Then we'll zoom right in on the massive experiment unfolding in Mesoamerica before asking the really tough question: is this progress, or is it a new kind of piracy? Let's get into it. Okay, section 1. So what is this new gold rush, really? Forget those old images of panning for gold in rivers. Today's prospectors are scientists in labs, and they're searching for genetic treasures hidden away in the planet's most diverse ecosystems. So what in the world is bioprospecting? Well, at its core, it's a hunt for genes and chemicals that have commercial value. Imagine walking into a massive, living library, searching for the hidden codes that could lead to life-saving medicines, or super-resilient crops, or even powerful industrial compounds. It's all tucked away in the DNA of plants, animals, and microbes. And if you want to know who wrote the playbook on this, you got to look at Costa Rica. Their National Institute for Biodiversity, INBio, came up with this radical new idea. Their mission was basically to make saving the rainforest profitable. So they went to huge corporations like Merck and said, look, you can come and explore our incredible biodiversity, but in return, you have to help fund our conservation, and if you find something big, you share the profits. This partnership basically became the blueprint for the rest of the world on how to turn nature into a business asset. Okay, so that model, it leads to a much, much bigger idea. We're not just talking about finding a few new products anymore. No, this represents a massive, fundamental shift in how our entire global economy thinks about and values nature itself. And this slide, wow, it just lays it out perfectly. The old way was commodification. You cut down a tree, you sell the wood, boom, it's gone, the resource gets used up. But this new way, capitalization, is completely different. Suddenly, that forest is way more valuable left standing because it's a living library of genetic information. Nature isn't just a pile of resources anymore. It's seen as a form of capital, an asset that keeps generating value. So what does that actually mean? Well, it means we're basically translating biology into the language of money. A real-world plant becomes a string of genetic code on a computer. That code gets a potential price tag, becomes intellectual property with a patent, and then it can be bought and sold on the global market. It's a way of making nature understandable and valuable to international investors. So, the big question is, why is all of this happening right now? The main engine driving this entire shift is globalization. It's providing both the high-tech tools and the financial motivation to push this new model of valuing nature across the entire planet. Think of globalization as this massive engine, and it has two main cylinders firing. First, you've got technology that expands the scope of what's valuable. We can now zoom in and analyze nature down to molecular level. Second, you have the logic of capital, which is always searching for new markets, and that expands the spatial scale. It forces this model to grow beyond the borders of a single country, like Costa Rica, and to swallow up an entire region. So the key takeaway here is that none of this is happening by accident. It's the logical conclusion when you smash together incredible technology with a financial system that's always hungry for new markets. From that point of view, putting a price on nature starts to look like the most efficient, the most rational thing to do. Okay, so let's zoom back in from that big global picture and land right back in Mesoamerica. Let's see how that original Costa Rican model is being scaled up to create this new kind of superhighway for genetic information and investment to flow across the whole region. And this is where it gets really fascinating. You've got two giant regional projects, right? The Plan Pueblo Panama, which is mostly about free trade and economic development. And then you have the Mesoamerican Biological Corridor, which is this huge, ambitious conservation project. Totally different goals, you think. But look closer. What's the shared method? Both of them rely on this idea of sustainable use through bioprospecting. So what happens when you put these two things together? Well, these projects are effectively redefining the entire region, all the way from southern Mexico down to Panama. The region's identity is being rebuilt around its ecological and genetic value. They're creating a new kind of land bridge, not just for animals, but for the flow of capital. But, and this is a big but, this whole new model isn't exactly getting a standing ovation from everyone. Now we have to start asking some really tough questions about whether this approach is actually sustainable or if it's even just. I mean, let's just stop and think about this for a second. Seriously, once a company finds a valuable gene, copies it in a lab, and slaps a patent on it, what's their economic incentive to keep protecting the forest where they found it? The model's long-term promise to actually conserve nature? Well, that's a very big and very serious open question. And that's where we get into these really heavy questions about justice. Critics have a pretty strong word for this, biopiracy. They see it as the theft of nature, sure, but also the theft of traditional knowledge from the local and indigenous communities who have stewarded these places for generations. It's like putting a fence around something that used to belong to everyone. And the results? Local people can get shut out from the very lands they depend on, creating a system where global finance ultimately decides who gets to control the building blocks of life itself. But the story doesn't just end there. This isn't a done deal. This new way of looking at nature is being actively challenged by people who have a very, very different vision for the future. All across Mesoamerica, you have these incredible grassroots movements popping up. Campesino farmers, indigenous groups, they're organizing to push back against what they see as a new form of colonization, a colonization of their lands, their resources, and their knowledge. They're fighting for local control. And this isn't just talk. This resistance is getting real results. In a huge victory, these movements successfully pressured the Mexican government to completely exclude bioprospecting from its part of the Mesoamerican biological corridor. It's a powerful reminder that local action can, in fact, challenge a global agenda. And that leaves us here, with what might be one of the most important questions of our time. As our technology lets us read and even rewrite the book of life, who gets to own it? Should the genetic code of our planet be private property to be traded on a global market? Or is it the common heritage of all of us? Who gets to decide? That's the real fight, the fight for the future of nature itself.